my name is Eleanor Harris. I'm 72 years old. And if you had asked me a few years ago, I would have said that my granddaughter's wedding day would be the happiest day of my life. I had imagined a very different scene. I pictured myself sitting in a church pew, dressed in the nicest gown I would have sewn myself, holding a hidden handkerchief and trying not to cry when she walked in wearing white. I pictured myself smiling, overflowing with pride, thinking, I did it. I brought this girl all the way here. But that's not what happened, because on the day they announced my granddaughter's wedding, I was forbidden from going. Yes, you read that right. My own children looked me in the eye and told me I wasn't welcome. They said I should be ashamed of myself if I showed up. And as absurd as it sounds, that wasn't even the worst part. I want you to know that I'm relieved to finally share my story. Thank you to the channel Buried by Family for listening to me. Please like this video before we continue. It really helps. Now, listen to my story. The worst part was realizing that, for the first time in my life, I wasn't just a hurt mother. I was a woman, being erased from her own story. I found out about Emma's engagement in the cruelest way possible. She didn't tell me. My daughter didn't tell me. My son didn't tell me. My son didn't tell me. I found out through a photo on Instagram. Emma smiling, showing off her ring, with the caption, I said yes. My heart tightened instantly. I sat on the edge of my bed, my phone shaking in my wrinkled hand, and stayed there for a few minutes, trying to swallow it. It wasn't the photo. It wasn't the engagement itself. It was the fact that no one had thought to tell me first. I was the one who took care of her when she was just a baby, who stayed up nights when she had a high fever, who bathed her, rocked her in my arms while her mother was too busy to stay home. I was the one who sewed her first day of school dress, who baked birthday cakes when no one had time, who watched every school play from the last row, alone but with my heart full. It was as if someone had erased my name from Emma's story. As if I had been nothing but an extra who didn't even get listed in the credits. 2 days after that photo, I got a phone call from my daughter, Julia. I still remembered the time when hearing her voice brought me joy. But that day, seeing her name on the screen only squeezed my chest. I answered, Hi, Mom. Everything okay? She said, mechanical, rushed. I saw Emma's photo. She's engaged, isn't she? I tried to put some warmth in my voice. A 1-second silence. Yes, she is, she replied, like someone answering about the weather. That's wonderful news. Why didn't anyone tell me? She let out a loud sigh. Mom, don't make a scene. Everything happened fast. Things are hectic. Don't make a scene. I'd heard that sentence my entire life, almost always right before getting hurt. I just would have liked to hear it from the family, I said truthfully. Family respects boundaries. Mom, she snapped back, cold. I felt something icy sliding through my chest. Boundaries, I repeated. What do you mean? She took a few seconds before answering, as if she were choosing the sharpest words she could find. I'll be direct, okay, about the wedding. My heart sped up, but instinctively, I held my breath. What about the wedding? And then she said, You're not going. The words hit me like a slap. What do you mean? I'm not going. My voice simply failed. Mom, we talked about this. Me, Mark, Liam Emma's fiancé and his family. It's going to be a very, how do I put this, sophisticated event. There'll be press, important guests, people from a different level. I gripped my phone tightly so I wouldn't drop it. So I'm not level enough to watch my granddaughter get married. That's not it. It's just, sometimes you talk too much, get emotional too easily, cry too easily, and Emma wants everything perfect, without awkward moments. I took a deep breath, my throat closing. Am I an awkward moment to you, Julia? Silence. The kind of silence that hurts more than any answer. We don't want you to embarrass yourself, she finally said. You wouldn't have the right clothes. You're not used to that kind of environment. People would notice, and you'd be uncomfortable. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was too absurd. I spent 40 years sewing the dresses those high-level people wore. I know very well what kind of clothing that is, I said softly, but firmly. She ignored it. It's better for everyone. Emma understands. It's all settled. That was the moment my heart truly cracked. Emma agreed to this. I asked, barely audible. She doesn't want conflict. She's focused on her big day. As her grandmother, you should understand. As a grandmother, but not as a person. I don't know where I found the courage, but I answered, So that's it? You're ashamed of me. On the other end of the line, She let out a short, irritated, nervous laugh. Mom, it's not shame, it's image. Sometimes you say things without a filter. Remember Christmas? You told that story about when we didn't have money for food. Liam's family was shocked. They're not used to that kind of conversation. That story, the true one, the one about the hunger I fought so hard to make sure they'd never experience again, it happened. I didn't make anything up, I replied. But nobody needs to know. That kind of past, we keep buried. When she said buried, it felt like she was talking about me. What exactly did she want to bury? The poverty, the shame, the mother. Julia, I raised you. I cared for Emma. I have the right to be there. Then came the sentence that stuck in my mind like a scar. You had that right when you were useful. Now you just get in the way. The room spun. I had to sit down on the bed. Say it again. It didn't come out right. She tried to correct herself. I just need you to understand, this day isn't about you. It's about Emma, and she doesn't want anyone making a scene. A scene. To them, that's what I'd become. An unwanted scene. So it's decided, she continued. Please don't show up. It'll be worse for everyone. And she hung up. She didn't even wait for my response. I stayed there, holding the silent phone, listening to nothing. The house suddenly felt bigger than it was. The walls colder. The clock in the living room ticked too loudly. Her sentence echoed through my mind like footsteps in an empty hallway. You had that right when you were useful. Now you just get in the way. I wasn't a mother anymore. Wasn't a grandmother. I was in the way. I looked down at my hands, the same hands that once held scissors and fabric late into the night to pay for school, medicine, rent. The same hands that cooled fevers with a damp cloth, steadied a bicycle with no training wheels, scrubbed floors, dishes, and tears. And I asked myself, for the first time in my life, when did I become something to be ashamed of? In the days that followed, I waited. I waited for a call from Emma, a grandma. That's not true, a grandma. I'll come get you. Even if I have to sneak you in, a grandma. I want you with me. Nothing. My phone stayed silent. I even checked if it was working. It was. I simply wasn't working for them anymore. I opened her profile. I saw the wedding preparations, dress fittings, flower choices, cake tasting, smiling photos beside the groom's family, her parents, her brother, and nowhere, me. I was the silhouette they'd cropped out of the picture, the piece of the story they'd deleted. One random afternoon, I sat down at the sewing machine that had been gathering dust in the corner. I ran my hand over the old metal, over the pedal that had made my feet ache so many nights. I had promised myself, back when Emma was a little girl, on the day she gets married, I'll sew her dress. I had saved lace, fabric, patterns. I had dreamed of every detail of that gown. But now, someone else had made it. A famous designer, extremely expensive, signature label, status. I laughed to myself, that empty laugh that tastes like metal. The laugh of someone who doesn't know whether to cry or collapse. Guess I was never meant to be in the pictures. Huh, Henry? I whispered into the empty room, as if my husband were still sitting in his usual chair. If he were alive, I knew exactly what he'd say. They can erase your name from their guest lists, Ellie. But they can't erase the truth. Only, at that moment, I had no idea how that truth would come out. Not where I expected. Not the way I imagined. But it would come out, at the altar. And when it did, no one in that church walked out the same. Not Emma, not my children, not me. If I had known what was about to happen on my granddaughter's wedding day, maybe I would have been better prepared. Maybe I would have brought a new heart with me. Because the exact moment the priest asked, "Does anyone here object to this marriage?" the truth decided to walk through the door. The days that followed felt like a long winter, even though it was spring. The house seemed bigger, or maybe I had shrunk. I'm not sure. At first, I still looked at my phone every 10 minutes, checked messages, notifications, missed calls, nothing. No, Grandma. Can I explain? No, I'm sorry. No, come over. Let's talk. The screen stayed empty, emptier than any hospital waiting room I've ever sat in. And then, without noticing when, I stopped waiting. 2 days before the wedding, I went to the market to buy bread. In the checkout line, 2 women were chatting excitedly. Did you hear? The bride's arriving in a helicopter. And the catering is from that famous place in Boston. No wedding in town will come close. They talked like they were describing an actual fairy tale event. And there I was, holding a bag with old bread and milk. I should have been sewing the dress. I should have been helping with flowers. with details, with ribbons, baking wedding cookies like I always did for family events, but I had been uninvited from my own story. The pain came in waves, some small, some strong, some almost knocking me back to the floor. When I got home, I sat in the kitchen chair, set the grocery bag on the table, and stared at the wall. Silence. And in that silence, the cruelest question slipped through the cracks. What if I don't matter at all? I took a breath, closed my eyes and whispered, without meaning to, Emma, why did you go quiet? At the end of that day, someone knocked on my door. The sound startled me so much my heart nearly jumped out of my chest. I opened it slowly, and there was Sarah, my neighbor, an 80-something woman, always wearing a smile and a coat too big for her tiny frame. May I come in? She asked, with a look that already knew the answer. She stepped inside, set her purse on the table, and said bluntly, I heard what happened. The whole town did. I closed my eyes, embarrassed, as if I had done something wrong. People will always talk, dear, but they won't always know the truth. And what they did to you, that was cowardice. I sat down, exhausted. I was forbidden from going to my granddaughter's wedding. Forbidden, she repeated, outraged. As if you were a threat. I let out a humorless laugh. They said I'd be an embarrassment. She looked at me long and deeply. Sweetheart, shame belongs to those who abandon the ones who raised them, not to the one who stayed loyal to the end. My eyes filled with tears. And right there, talking to her, I realized something. I was ashamed of something that wasn't my fault. I was hiding as if I were the one who had done something terrible. But the truth was, I was the victim. And the more I thought about it, the clearer it became. They wanted me to believe I was disposable, but I never was. The next morning, I woke with something different inside me. It wasn't anger, it wasn't sadness, it was something deeper, cleaner, older, dignity. I showered slowly, dried my hair with care, put on face cream, the simple kind from the grocery store, the one I've used all my life. Then I opened the wardrobe. Inside was the deep teal dress I had started sewing years ago when Emma said she wanted to walk into the church one day, calling me my inspiration. It wasn't finished, but it was whole. I folded it carefully and laid it on the bed. Beside it, I placed my simple black shoes, the purse Henry gave me on our 30th anniversary, and the little beaded necklace Emma gave me when she was 8. For you to look pretty for me, Grandma. 8 years old. Back when love was love, not currency. I put everything into my small suitcase, closed the zipper, and said to myself, looking at my own reflection, I'm going, even if I can only stand outside the door. I'm going, because if there's one thing I've learned in 72 years, it's this: the worst regret in life is silence. Before leaving, I sat on the edge of the bed, took a deep breath, and sent a message to Emma. My dear, I just want you to know that I love you. If I can't be with you tomorrow, know that I'll be praying for you from here. You have always been the light of my life. With love, your grandmother. I hit send, stared at the screen. Scene popped up, but no message back. Just one single emoji. A silent heart. No apology. No come. No, that's not what this is, Grandma. But it wasn't hatred. And somehow, that was enough to spark a small flame. On the day of the wedding, I woke early, grabbed my suitcase, and called a ride. When the driver stopped in front of the massive gates of the luxury venue, I felt the air shift, the smell of expensive flowers, the flash of photographers, shining cars lined up like a magazine spread. Everything looked perfect, glamorous, unreal, and there I was, small, simple, invisible, but steady. I walked slowly toward the entrance steps. That's when I heard loud laughter behind me. I turned, and there they were, Mark and Julia, immaculate, dressed like celebrities, surrounded by friends. The moment they saw me, they froze. Julia narrowed her eyes as if she'd spotted something dirty on the floor. Mark gave me a crooked half-smile. And then, right there in front of everyone, Julia said the sentence that sliced through the air. What are you doing here, Mom? Didn't they tell you you're not welcome? Heads turned. Cameras flashed. Some people laughed. Others whispered. My hands began to tremble. And before I could answer, I met the cold stare of my daughter and I understood. I wasn't there to be accepted. I was there to be seen. At that very moment, the bells began to ring, and the giant church doors opened as everyone turned toward the bride's grand entrance. But no one expected what came after, because what happened at that altar changed everything. The sound of the bells echoed inside my chest like war drums. Every step I took felt like it weighed 100 pounds, not from age, but from rejection. That kind of weight doesn't press on the body. It crushes you from the inside. Guests walked in through the main doors, smiling, posing for photos, greeting people, flaunting expensive clothes and sparkling jewelry. Happiness rehearsed and polished. And I stood there, frozen on the steps, gripping my purse with both hands like someone clinging to a rope in the middle of the ocean. Mark approached first. He adjusted his suit with that arrogant gesture he always used when he wanted to look more important than he was. "Mom, for God's sake, don't do this. Don't turn Emma's day into a circus." My stomach twisted. "I came to see my granddaughter get married. Nothing more." He leaned in close, speaking through clenched teeth. "You're going to ruin everything. As if you haven't embarrassed us enough already." Embarrassed. The words spun inside my head like a knife twisting into flesh. I inhaled slowly, trying not to break in front of everyone. "What did I ever do that makes you ashamed of me? Tell me one thing, Mark." "One." He blinked slowly, breathed in, and then answered, "You exist. That's enough." For a second, the ground disappeared beneath me, but I didn't cry. I didn't give him that satisfaction. I straightened my back, lifted my chin. "One day you're going to understand what you just said, but by then, I won't be around to see it." He stepped back, irritated by the calm I had somehow found without meaning to. Julia came up beside him, wearing a fake, poisonous smile. "The bride is about to walk in. Mom, please leave before someone notices you. Please don't shame us any further." Further, as if I were an open wound insistently bleeding in front of everyone. But before I could respond, a voice rose behind us, expected, steady. "I don't think she should leave." We all turned at once, and there he was, Cal, the groom's father, serious, elegant, respected, a man who carried himself like someone who never lowered his eyes to anyone. He looked at me with respect, something I hadn't received in a very long time. "Man said, any grandmother should be at her granddaughter's wedding. Any worthy grandmother." Julia's jaw locked tight. "She wasn't invited." "Sometimes," Michael said calmly, "those who don't send the invitation have the most to hide." A heavy silence followed. Mark tried to laugh, but it came out strained. "This isn't your business, Michael." But he simply turned to me and gestured politely. "Come, sit with me and my wife. There's always room for someone who loves the bride." In that moment, something warm stirred inside my chest, a thin, fragile thread of dignity, but strong enough to hold. I walked with him. Mark and Julia just stood there, watching, powerless, and I could see the terror in their eyes. Because people who build castles out of lies are terrified of anyone who carries the truth in their voice. The sanctuary was flawless, an exhibition of luxury. White aisle runner, towering flower arrangements, crystal chandeliers casting golden light, guests dressed like movie stars. I sat in the very last row, beside Michael and his wife, who gently took my hand and said, "We're glad you're here." I wanted to cry right then, but I swallowed it and forced a smile. The music began. The groomsmen walked in. The flower girls and ring bearers strolled down the aisle, smiling. Guests whispered compliments. Then the giant doors closed, and slowly, they opened again. And there was Emma, beautiful, radiant, her blonde hair pinned with tiny pearls, a long white dress with delicate embroidery, exactly the style she'd always dreamed of. I held my breath. She was stunning. And at the same time, she looked so small inside all that manufactured perfection. As her eyes scanned the church, she froze for a split second when she saw me. Her lips trembled, and I saw, even from far away, a tear trapped in the corner of her eye. Her heart knew, even if her mouth stayed silent. As she walked down the aisle, I heard the whispers around me. "That's the grandmother who wasn't allowed to come. What a shame. This will be gossip all over town. The Harris family is always wrapped up in drama." I kept my eyes on Emma, only on her, so I wouldn't fall apart. She walked past me. Her hands were shaking. I caught the scent I'd known since she was a child: vanilla and wildflowers. For a moment, I thought she'd stop there, kneel, hug me, ask for forgiveness, but she kept walking, and that was okay. Life doesn't always give us pretty endings before the turning point. Liam stood waiting at the altar, handsome, smiling, a little too proud. But I noticed something, a nervous glimmer in his eyes, like someone hiding something behind all that happiness. Michael, beside me, sighed heavy, as though he were carrying a truth too big to hold. And for the first time, I thought, maybe I'm not the only thing wrong in this story. The ceremony went on the way all ceremonies do: rehearsed words, perfect promises, frozen smiles, until the priest raised the microphone and said, "If anyone here has anything against this marriage, speak now, or forever hold your peace." Absolute silence. A silence that hurt. A silence that screamed. I swear I could hear my own breathing. And then, someone stood up. A tall man in a gray suit rose in the middle of the church, his face pale and tense. Julia slapped her hand over her mouth, horrified. Mark turned pale. Emma's eyes widened. Liam's jaw tightened. And for the first time in a long time, I felt my heart pound, not from fear, but from hope, because I knew the truth was coming. "I have something to say," the man said, his steady voice echoing through the entire church. The church held its breath. The world stopped. And in that exact second, everything began to crumble. The man in the gray suit stood tall in the middle of the aisle, steady, with an expression that mixed determination and old, buried pain. He held a thick envelope in his hands, crumpled, as if it had been squeezed for a very long time. The silence in the church was so deep you could hear people's nervous breathing. The priest swallowed hard. "Sir, please state your name." The man inhaled, lifted his chin, and said, "My name is Daniel Whitaker, and I need to stop this wedding." A loud murmur rippled through the sanctuary. Shock, surprise, hungry curiosity. Julia shot to her feet. "This is absurd. Who let you in here?" He stared at her coldly. "I'm here because someone needed to tell the truth, and no one in this family had the courage to do it." I felt each word burn into my skin like hot iron. Mark stood up too, bright red with anger. "Get out now before I call security." But Daniel didn't even glance at him. He turned to Emma, who stood trembling at the altar, gripping her bouquet with both hands, white as the lace she wore. "I'm sorry to do this like this, Emma, but you deserve to know before it's too late." Liam stepped forward, his arrogance cracking. "What the hell is this? Are you insane?" Daniel opened the envelope slowly, pulling out a stack of photos and documents, and held them up for everyone to see. "What's in here proves that this wedding was built on lies, the worst kind of lies." People leaned forward in their seats, desperate not to miss a single word. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely breathe. "Liam, tell Emma how long you've been hiding this. Or should I be the one to tell her?" Liam's face went gray, then red, then white again. He looked at his parents, frozen like glass statues on the verge of shattering. Emma, voice trembling, asked, "Liam, what is he talking about?" He didn't answer. He just closed his eyes. And then Daniel said, loud and clear, "Liam isn't who he claimed to be. He's already married. And he has a daughter, a 2-year-old girl whom he abandoned." Gasps, hands flying to mouths, people rising from their seats. Emma dropped her bouquet. Petals scattered across the white aisle like blood on snow. "That's a lie," Liam's mother cried, shooting to her feet in panic. But Daniel lifted the papers higher. Marriage certificate, birth records, photos, messages, money transfers, all here. Cameras began flashing, photographers, guests recording with their phones. The internet was being born right there. "And that's not all," Daniel continued. "Liam agreed to marry Emma because her family has money, because he needed to cover debts that none of you know about." Liam exploded. "Shut up, you bastard. I'll destroy you." But Daniel didn't flinch. "Destroying me won't erase the truth. You lied to this girl, and your parents helped you hide it." Emma, trembling, faced Liam. "Is it true?" Silence. Heavy silence. Silence, soaked in guilt. Finally, Liam said, voice small, "I can explain." And Emma screamed a scream so broken it tore straight through everyone's chest. "Explain what?" "That you lied about everything. That you used me. That you dragged me to this altar knowing it would destroy me." She began to cry, not with simple tears, but with the cry of someone watching her entire life collapse in front of her. And I felt my own tears burn, not from pain this time, but from the brutal clarity of injustice finally being exposed. At that moment, Julia shot up, furious, pointing a finger at Daniel. "You set this whole thing up. It's a lie." And then he said something that made the entire church gasp. "I didn't come here alone. I came because someone in this family asked me to." Silence, again, but this time a different silence. The kind of silence that holds a match right over a pool of gasoline. Someone who couldn't stand watching Emma be used anymore. Someone who knows what's really happening here. Julia's eyes flew wide. Mark went stiff as a rope pulled to its limit. Emma looked around, desperate. Who asked you to come here?" Daniel turned slowly and pointed at me. Every pair of eyes landed on me like blinding spotlights. My whole body froze. Emma covered her mouth. Grandma, was it you? Her voice hit me like a gunshot, full of pain, shock, and desperation. My breath faltered. I opened my mouth to speak, but before any sound escaped, Julia screamed, I knew it was you. You've always wanted to ruin everything I built. Always jealous. None of this would have happened if it weren't for you. And suddenly, the entire church turned on me. Shocked looks, judging looks, whispers rising like a swarm. She ruined the wedding. What kind of grandmother does that? What a bitter woman. I tried to speak, tried to defend myself, but no voice came out, as if something had both hands around my throat from the inside. And then, to my horror, Emma ran toward me, with vicious tears streaking down her face. She screamed, "Why, Grandma? Why would you do this to me?" My world spun. I tried to reach for her hand. "Emma, sweetheart, listen to me." But she stepped back like I was fire. "You destroyed the most important day of my life." And then, in front of everyone, she shouted the sentence that tore apart what was left of my heart. "I never want to see you again." A dull, deafening sound filled my ears like a muted explosion. My vision blurred. My body lost the ground beneath it. And the last thing I heard before everything went dark was, "Call security. Get her out of here." The last thing I saw was Emma's face, full of pain, yes, but also full of something I couldn't identify at the time. Fear. It was the beginning of something much bigger. Something no one in that church was prepared to face. Not even me. When my eyes closed and the world went black, I felt the floor disappear beneath me, like I was falling into a deep, endless hole. I didn't hear the shouting anymore, didn't see those judging faces, didn't feel the weight of their eyes piercing my skin. Only darkness and silence. Absolute silence. The kind of silence that only exists when the soul gives up fighting for a few seconds. I woke to the distant beeping of machines and fast footsteps echoing down a long hallway. Cold, bright lights, the sharp smell of antiseptic, the rough hospital sheet under my trembling hands. It took me a few seconds to understand where I was. A young nurse with her hair tied back and gentle eyes noticed I had finally opened mine. "Mrs. Eleanor, can you hear me?" she asked softly. I tried to answer, but my throat felt dry, scraped raw, like ground glass. She brought me a cup of water and lifted my head gently. "You fainted in the church. Your blood pressure dropped fast. You tried to speak, but your body couldn't take it." I closed my eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of reality fall over me again. The wedding, the altar, the explosion, Emma's scream, and the sentence that kept pounding inside my chest like a bloody drum. "I never want to see you again." My chest burned as if I'd been stabbed. The nurse placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "Do you want me to call someone from your family?" I let out a laugh, short, weak, painful. "No, they don't want to see me." She hesitated. "They know you're here. They left your name at the reception." My heart jumped for a second. I felt hope. "They came?" I asked, voice trembling. She lowered her gaze. "They were here, but they didn't come in." I closed my eyes. Of course they didn't. It was easier to erase me than face me. The nurse stepped out, leaving me alone in the silent room. A TV was on, muted, mounted to the wall, showing a local news broadcast. I nearly turned it off until something flashed across the screen that froze my entire body. "Luxury wedding erupts in scandal." Leaving one unconscious cell phone, videos appeared, footage of the chaos in the church, shared online. I saw myself being carried out, unconscious, my shoes dragging along the floor, my dress wrinkled, Julia screaming, Mark trying to block cameras, Emma sobbing hysterically at the altar, Liam shouting at the man who exposed the truth, people pointing, commenting, filming. And someone had captioned it, "The grandmother ruined the wedding." My chest tightened. I turned my face away, but the silent footage kept screaming inside my head. A lone woman being dragged like discarded furniture. That was what 72 years of my life looked like, reduced to a few seconds of video. The door opened softly. For a moment, I thought it might be Emma, coming to say she was sorry, that she understood, that she wanted to hear me. But it wasn't. It was the man in the gray suit, Daniel Whitaker. He walked in slowly, respectfully, holding the same envelope from before. "How are you feeling?" I didn't answer. I turned my face toward the window, my heart beating like it wanted to break through my ribs. "I'm sorry for what happened," he said quietly. My voice came out thin, but sharp. You destroyed my family. He took a deep breath, like someone swallowing something heavy. I didn't destroy anything. I only revealed what was already there. I closed my eyes, suffocated by the pain. I didn't need to watch my granddaughter hate me in front of the whole town. She doesn't hate you. She's hurt. And she doesn't know the whole truth. Not yet. I looked at him. And what truth is that? He pulled a chair close and sat beside the bed. The truth you should have known long ago. Truth your children hid from you for years. My heart stopped. What did they hide? He opened the envelope slowly. All of this should have been told to you a long time ago, but they decided it was more convenient to keep you in the dark. My hands began to tremble. What's in there? His eyes turned serious, deep. Proof that you weren't uninvited from the wedding because you didn't deserve it, but not for the reason they told you. They're not ashamed of you. They're afraid of you. A chill ran up my entire body. Afraid of what? He set the envelope on the table beside the bed. Afraid of what you might discover. Silence. A thick silence. A silence that warned of a coming storm. This wedding wasn't about love. It was about $T. Your money. Your name. Your past. My heart hammered. My name. My past. I have nothing. I'm a retired seamstress. He looked at me with a mix of sympathy and disbelief. You have far more than you realize, Eleanor. I sat frozen, barely able to breathe. Explain, I whispered. He inhaled deeply and spoke slowly, each word dropping like stone slabs. You are the rightful legal heir to a massive estate and inheritance your children have hidden, lied about, and used without your knowledge. My body went numb. The whole world fell silent. I gripped the sheets. That's insane. I don't have anything. Yes, you do, he said gently, and they know it. And they did everything they could to make sure you never found out. My whole body trembled. Air fled my lungs. A loud ringing overtook my mind. And Emma, I asked, my voice cracking. Did she know? He answered without hesitation. No. She was used to the same way you were your entire life. A hot tear rolled down my face. And finally, I understood something devastating. My silence didn't protect me. It slowly killed me. I tried to speak, tried to express what was inside me, but nothing came out. The pain was too big to fit through my throat. I broke. I cried with my whole body, not with tears in my eyes, but with tears from my soul. I cried for decades of silence. I cried for years of humiliation hidden behind polite smiles. I cried for every invisible effort, for every late-night stitchy, for every empty plate, for every sacrifice buried in everyone's memory but mine. I cried like I was expelling poison, and in the middle of my sobbing, I asked, why? Why did they do this to me? Daniel placed his hand over mine steady. Human, because small people are afraid of those who carry real greatness. And then his tone shifted firmer, more urgent. And now, Eleanor, the important question isn't why. The real question is, what are you going to do with the truth? I looked at him. And for the first time since all of this began, I felt the first spark of an old fire burning inside me. It wasn't hatred. It wasn't revenge. It was justice, and dignity, and rebirth. Are you ready to take back what's yours? Daniel asked. And I answered, my voice weak but firm. I'm ready to stand. I had no idea, in that moment, that what came next wouldn't just change my life, it would change my entire family's history. Daniel opened the envelope slowly, like he was handling dynamite. And in a way, he was. He placed on the bedside table a stack of old documents, yellowed pages, contracts, certificates, letters, and newspaper clippings. My eyes followed every movement, unable to blink. This wasn't imagination. It wasn't exaggeration. It wasn't drama. The truth was there, physical, heavy, cold. He took a deep breath before speaking. All of this belongs to you, and always has. But it was hidden. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it might tear through my skin. Hidden by who? He held my gaze. By your children. My fingers tightened around the bedsheet, as if I needed to hold on to something just to stay upright. Why? What were they so afraid I'd discover? He opened the first page and slid it toward me. Property certificate -1979. The name Eleanor Harris in bold letters. Below it, my husband's signature. And further down, a lawyer's signature. My voice came out as a shattered whisper. This is Henry's factory deed. Daniel nodded. The factory wasn't sold off when your husband died, like they told you. The air was ripped from my lungs. But they said the company went bankrupt, that the debts were huge, that there was nothing left for me except the house. They lied, he said without hesitation. The truth is, the factory was sold shortly after Henry's death for a massive amount of money. And the money was divided between Mark and Julia legally using forged documents and fake authorizations to cut you out. My hand flew to my mouth. My whole body trembled. They stole from me. Daniel nodded with sorrow. For more than 20 years, the world spun around. Me old memories hitting like crashing waves. Me, working as a seamstress in 2 different houses because I didn't want to be a burden. Me, selling my wedding ring to pay for medicine. Me, counting coins to buy Emma's birthday present. Me, eating stale bread and old coffee to save money, while my children traveled, bought new cars, moved into a luxury house, hosted extravagant parties, and I thought it was merit, hard work, success. I believed their lie. For decades, they stole your future, and they lied while looking you in the eye. A hot tear fell before I could stop it. It wasn't sadness, it was devastation, and anger, and resurrection. Daniel went on. When Emma started growing up and getting close to you, they panicked at the thought of her discovering the truth. That's why they created distance. That's why they pushed the 2 of you apart. I closed my eyes and the pain was so sharp it made my whole body tremble. They destroyed my relationship with my granddaughter. To protect their own theft, he finished. My breath came out uneven, like my lungs couldn't hold themselves up. And the wedding? What does that have to do with it? Daniel organized the papers and opened another document. Investments International Bank. The groom's father is involved in the same financial schemes as his son. Both are on the edge of collapse. They planned to use Emma to save their businesses and gain access to the estate that rightfully belongs to you. The truth hit like a punch to the stomach. So, Emma was never a bride. She was currency. Daniel lowered his gaze out of respect. And she was used by the very people who were supposed to protect her. My heart split in 2 right then. Not just for me, but for the girl I once carried in my arms, for the child who ran around the yard with crooked pigtails, for the teenager who cried on my shoulder over her first heartbreak, for the woman who walked down the aisle thinking she was living a fairy tale. And I, her grandmother, only wanted to save her. But she pushed me away because she believed those who deceived her. So I asked, voice fragile, does Emma know? No, but she will, Daniel replied, sooner than you think. Before I could speak, the door opened. I turned slowly and my heart nearly stopped. It was Emma, her eyes red from hours of crying, her wedding dress wrinkled, her veil crooked, her makeup smeared like she'd walked through a storm. She was alone. No Mark, no Julia, no Liam, just her. And when our eyes met, I saw something I had never seen before, a soul cracking open. She stepped inside, hesitant, hurting, and her voice broke. Grandma, can I talk to you? Daniel rose slowly. I'll leave you 2 alone. Before stepping out, he leaned toward me and whispered, now it begins. The door closed. My granddaughter stood before me, small, fragile, destroyed, and she said, tears streaming uncontrollably, Grandma, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. My breath caught. The word sorry hung between us, urgent, needed. Emma, what happened after I fainted? She wiped her face with a shaking hand and answered, the truth didn't stop at the altar. After you collapsed, someone told the rest. A chill ran up my spine. Grandma, someone revealed something about Mom, and it wasn't small. Emma closed the door behind her slowly, like someone closing the door to a room where a death has just been declared. She stood there, hand still on the doorknob, breathing fast as if fighting her own body. I had never seen my granddaughter like that, broken, empty, unmoored. She swallowed hard before speaking. Grandma, when you fainted, everything went insane. People started leaving the church, some were filming everything. And then, someone walked up to the altar. The moment she said that, my heart tightened. Who? I asked. Emma wiped her face, trying to clear tears that wouldn't stop falling. A woman I'd never seen before. She walked up to the altar shouting Mom's name. My whole body shivered. Your mother's name, I repeated, dread settling over me. Emma nodded, her chin trembling. She ran up there, completely desperate, and yelled that she had to speak before it was too late. The images formed in my mind like a heavy, suffocating film. The whole church went silent, and she screamed that her daughter wasn't who she pretended to be, Emma said, her voice breaking. My stomach twisted. What did she say, Emma? I asked, gripping the sheet. Emma took a deep breath. like she needed to gather pieces of herself just to continue. She said, "Mom is a criminal." A crushing silence filled the room. My hands turned ice cold. Emma continued, her voice trembling like glass ready to shatter. She said Mom diverted money from her own company, that she used the factory for laundering schemes, that she forged documents, that she moved huge amounts of money under Dad's name and yours, without either of you knowing. I shut my eyes tightly. It was real. It was terrible. It was filthy. It was the truth I had felt for decades, but never knew how to name. Emma swallowed back a sob and went on. She brought proof, Grandma, documents, emails, bank statements, all of it, right there in front of everyone. My lungs tightened. My God. Emma clutched her own wrist, as if she needed to hold herself upright. She said Mom stole millions, and that part of the money paid for my wedding, for the dress, for the helicopter, for buying influence with Liam's family. I felt like I was going to be sick. I had sewn dresses for decades just to earn $20 extra, while my own daughter strutted around in dirty money. Emma looked straight into my eyes, and it was like staring into a broken mirror. When Mom saw them showing the documents, she tried to grab the microphone, tried to snatch the papers out of the woman's hand. She screamed it was all lies. But Dad just froze. He didn't deny anything. Her chest heaved in a dry sob. He knew, Grandma, and he never said a word. My heart shattered all over again, not for me, for her. Emma breathed unsteadily, fighting through the words. And then, the woman told everyone that I was being used as leverage, that the wedding was part of a financial deal, that I wasn't just going to be a wife, I was going to be collateral if everything fell apart. The words hit like a gunshot to the chest. I was a contract, Grandma. I was sold. She collapsed to her knees on the cold hospital floor, her white dress spreading out like dirty snow, and she cried like someone who no longer knew how to breathe. I wanted to hold her, to pull every tear into my own hands, to be a shield the way I always had been, but I couldn't move. My whole body was shaking. Finally, Emma lifted her face, and in her eyes was a devastating mix of love, regret, and crushing guilt. Grandma, I screamed at you in front of everyone. I pushed you away. I said I never wanted to see you again. How can I ask your forgiveness after that? How can I even look at you? I cupped her face with both of my hands, my old, wrinkled, but steady hands, and I said, in the softest voice I could find amid the chaos, you were deceived, Emma, just like I was, just like we were, our whole lives. Her tears fell onto my hands. I felt the weight settle between us. Years of silence, years of manipulation, years of control disguised as love. Emma squeezed my hands tightly. Help me fix this, Grandma, please. And in that moment, the fire that had been sleeping inside me, ignited by pain, truth, and a courage I thought I no longer had, turned into a living flame. I lifted my granddaughter's face gently. I'm going to fight. But now, Emma, it's not just for me. She inhaled shakily, clutching my hands with a desperate kind of faith. It's for you. Emma wiped her face, took a deep breath, and said, Grandma, there's something else, something you need to know, something that changes everything. My heart stalled. What is it, Emma? She swallowed hard. The woman who walked up to the altar. She's Henry's daughter. The world stopped. She said she's my aunt, and that you never knew she existed. My heart skipped an entire beat. I could only whisper, my God. The silence between Emma and me felt alive, breathing heavily in the room like a real, suffocating presence. I could hear my heart pounding out of rhythm, loud and uneven inside my chest. A secret daughter, Henry's daughter. My granddaughter sang it with her eyes wide, as if she still didn't believe her own words. Say it again, Emma, please, I asked, barely able to breathe. She drew in a sharp breath, her hands trembling. That woman who went to the altar. She said she's Henry's daughter, and that you never knew, because Mom stopped you from finding out. My body went completely still. I felt the blood drain from my face, turning me cold from head to toe. What's her name? I managed to ask, my voice thread-thin. Abigail Moore, Emma said. She said she's been trying to reach you for months, but every time she tried, Mom showed up first and threatened her to stay away. I clenched my hands until pain shot through my knuckles, the only thing keeping my body from collapsing. Abigail, Henry's daughter, a name carrying everything, secrets, betrayal, pain, truth, and now, new life growing beneath the ruins. Emma continued, her voice unsteady. She said that years before you and Grandpa officially got married, he had a relationship with another woman. The woman died in childbirth, and Henry took the baby in. A sharp, cutting pain hit my chest. Henry had always been my safe harbor, my partner, my truest love, but he was human, and humans make mistakes. Mistakes that hurt, mistakes that bleed. Emma breathed in slowly. He tried to tell you many times, but he was afraid of losing you. Afraid of losing the family. Afraid of what your parents would say. I closed my eyes as silent tears slid down my cheeks. I remembered nights when he seemed restless, standing in the kitchen staring out the window, as if carrying something unbearably heavy. I always thought it was exhaustion. Now I saw it had been guilt. Emma continued. One day, when Mom was around 20, he told her everything and asked for help to reconnect with Abigail. He wanted to bring her into the family. I opened my eyes slowly as if the world had just gone blurry around me. And what did Julia do? Emma's hand tightened into a fist. She lost it. She screamed that no one was going to take her place, said a bastard wouldn't ruin the family or steal her future. And she threatened to tell you everything in the cruelest way possible. My stomach twisted. So, she stopped Henry from telling me. Emma nodded. Yes, and more than that. She covered her mouth, as if holding back nausea born from pure disgust. She went to Abigail when she was only 14 and offered her money to disappear. My eyes widened in horror. No. She told Abigail that if she didn't vanish, she would make her life hell. She promised to ruin her education. Promised to destroy anyone who tried to help her. My entire body trembled. My daughter, my own daughter. What had I done to raise someone capable of this? Emma continued, swallowing a sob. Abigail left. She lived in shelters, worked horrible jobs, went hungry, and even so, she kept trying to find you. I felt my heart break again, not like a crack, but like an explosion. Emma held out a piece of paper to me, crumpled, stained with tears. She showed us this at the church. It was a letter, written many years ago, by Henry, to me. His handwriting, shaky but unmistakably his, cut straight through me. Ellie, there's something I need to tell you. Something I carry as both a weight and a blessing. I have a daughter. Her name is Abigail. Before I could read the rest, hot tears flooded my eyes. I pressed the letter to my chest and cried with my whole being, not with loose tears, but with sobs torn from an open soul. He tried to tell you, Grandma, Emma said. But Mom intercepted the letter. She never let it reach you. My body folded over as if I'd been physically struck. She destroyed everything, Emma said, her voice thick with anger and shame. She destroyed you, and she destroyed Abigail too. Heavy silence, funeral silence, until Emma whispered, Grandma, there's more. My eyes met hers, red but steady. Abigail said that before Grandpa died, he filed a petition in court to recognize her officially and secure her inheritance. My breath stopped. That was a year before he died. Do you know who was responsible for handling the paperwork, the signatures, and the delivery to the court? I already knew the name before she said it. It came like burning poison. Mom. Emma nodded. She destroyed the documents. She hid everything. She made sure Abigail was never legally recognized, and because of that, she stole everything that belonged to her. My hands went numb. It wasn't just theft. It was the murder of someone's future. And then, Grandma, Emma inhaled. She used your name and a forged authorization to cut you out as well. My heart pounded so violently it felt ready to burst. Everything they took from you, they took from her too. Deep silence, absolute silence, the silence of bombs exploding in slow motion. Emma stood slowly, walked to my bedside, and held my hands. Grandma, Abigail is outside. She wants to see you. My body froze. My hands trembled. My voice disappeared. I don't know if I can, I whispered. Emma squeezed my hands hard with love. Grandma, you have to. For you, for her, for Grandpa. And then she said, tears falling uncontrollably. And because Mom is on her way here now, and she's furious, and capable of anything. My heart leaped into panic. What do you mean? I asked. Emma wiped her face with the torn sleeve of her wedding dress. She found out you have the documents now, and she's going to try to stop you before you talk. Cold blood ran through my veins. A door slammed down the hallway. Fast footsteps pounded like gunshots, and someone shouted outside, "Don't let her in." Emma spun around, terrified. I gripped the sheets, because, for the first time in my life, I felt real fear of my own daughter. The footsteps in the hallway grew louder fast. heavy, furious like thunder, announcing a storm. Emma stood frozen, pale, caught between fear and courage. I felt my heart pounding hard, pushing hot blood through my weakened chest. Emma, lock the door. Now, I said, my voice low but firm. She ran to the door, turned the key, and pressed her body against it, as if she could hold back a flood with her own weight. But before she could breathe, bam! The door shook so violently the entire wall trembled. Open this door right now, Emma. Julia's voice tore down the hallway. You don't know what you're doing. Emma squeezed her eyes shut, tears streaming without control. Don't open it, Emma, I said firmly. If you open that door, she won't just hurt me, she'll destroy you too. Another violent hit. Bam, bam, bam. Open it. Julia screamed. I'm your mother. Emma answered with a trembling but strong voice. That's exactly why I locked it, Mom. Silence, abrupt, brutal, heavy. Then Julia's voice came low, dripping with poison. Emma, you're disappointing me deeply. I watched Emma's breath shuddered, that old wound opening again. But she didn't move. I'm not obeying you this time, Mom. The door exploded with another crash. This time, it gave way. The wood split at the hinge, the door swinging halfway open and slamming against the wall. Julia stormed in like a hurricane, hair disheveled, makeup smeared, face red with rage, her hands shaking like claws. She scanned the room until her eyes locked onto mine, and when they did, I saw the devil. Not metaphorically. I saw someone who had lost all controls, someone who destroys first to avoid being destroyed. She lunged toward the bed and pointed a finger at me so close, it nearly touched my face. You ruined my life. You ruined everything. You destroyed my daughter's wedding. Why didn't you just die, Mother? The air vanished from the room. Emma screamed, Mom, stop. But Julia ignored her, her eyes feverish, full of hatred and desperation. You've always been a burden. You've always embarrassed me. I spent my whole life cleaning up the messes you made. You don't deserve anything. Nothing. I breathed deeply, trying to hold on to the calm she didn't have. I spent my whole life trying to protect you, I said quietly, and you spent yours destroying me. Julia, she laughed, a broken, manic laugh that chilled every bone in my body. You think anyone will believe you? A pathetic old woman who fainted in the middle of her own scandal. You think you can fight me? I stared at her directly without blinking, without backing away. I'm already fighting. She froze for a moment, surprised by the strength in my voice. Then, with renewed rage, she pointed at Emma. And you, ungrateful. I gave you everything. And this is how you repay me. Defending that useless old woman. You owe me everything you have. Emma stepped forward, her body shaking, but steady as a rock. I don't owe you anything, Mom. You used me. You sold me. You destroyed my life. Julia's eyes widened like she'd been shot. I did everything for you. Everything. Emma screamed, a sound torn from the deepest part of her. Liar. You did everything for yourself. You turned me into a bargaining chip. You were going to sell me to save your dirty business. And then she exploded. Emma spat out words like blades. You destroyed Grandpa, destroyed Abigail, destroyed Grandma, and you almost destroyed me. And now I know. Julia went white like all the blood drained out of her. Who told you that? She hissed, barely audible. Emma answered, Abigail, the daughter you tried to erase, the sister you tried to bury alive. Julia's face contorted hatred, fear, panic, full-blown madness, and then she screamed, like a trapped animal, she is not my sister. She will never be part of this family. She is a mistake. She is filth. And I will not let you ruin everything now. Before either of us could react, she reached into her purse and pulled out a syringe filled with clear liquid. I knew exactly what it was before Emma even realized it. Hospital sedative. Strong, potent, dangerous. She raised the syringe and lunged toward me, screaming, You were supposed to stay out of this, but since you insisted on coming back, I'll shut you up myself this time. Emma screamed. No, it saw the needle glint under the harsh hospital lights. I saw the hatred in my daughter's eyes, and in that moment, with brutal clarity, I understood. She wasn't afraid of hurting me. She was afraid of me speaking. The door burst open again, shouts, running footsteps, and someone grabbed Julia's wrist at the exact second the needle was about to touch my skin. It's over, Julia. A man's voice roared. It was Daniel, and behind him, Abigail. Her eyes, Henry's eyes, locked onto mine. And I finally broke. Daniel gripped Julia's wrist so tightly the syringe nearly fell, but she still fought wild, frantic, like a trapped animal. "Let me go," she screamed, twisting her body, trying to stab me anywhere she could. "Let me go." Daniel tightened his hold, steady and controlled. "It's over, Julia. You're not hurting anyone else." And then Abigail stepped into the room, silent, steady, a face shaped by years of pain and survival, yet still impossibly soft. The air stopped. Everything went quiet, like the whole world held its breath. Her eyes met mine, and I saw Henry in her. The same deep gaze, the same way he furrowed his brow when something hurt, the same fragile dignity of someone who had survived the impossible. And I knew, without a single word, "Abigail." I whispered, my voice breaking. "My daughter." She pressed a hand to her mouth, choking on years of locked-away tears. "I waited so long for this," she said, voice trembling. "So long." She stepped forward, then another step, until she stood beside my bed. I lifted my hand, shaking, weak, but whole. She held my hand tightly, like grabbing a rope thrown to someone about to fall. We both cried, without shame, without restraint, without hiding. We cried for everything trapped for decades, every forced silence, every buried hurt, every stolen life. Emma cried too, kneeling beside the bed, holding my other hand. Seconds felt like eternity, but eternity shattered behind us with the chaos erupting again. Julia screamed, no longer with a human voice, but the raw shriek of someone who has lost everything. "You can't do this to me. None of this is true. She is not my family." And in a burst of irrational strength, she tore herself free from Daniel's grip and threw herself toward the fallen syringe. But she didn't get far. The door crashed open, this time with police flooding the room. 2 officers grabbed her with cold, professional force, wrenching her arms behind her and ripping the syringe from her hand. She kicked, screamed, thrashed, headbutting one of them like a rabid child. "You don't understand. She's going to ruin everything. That old woman is going to destroy my life." I finally lifted my head and spoke calmly, with a steadiness I didn't know I still possessed. "I didn't destroy your life, Julia. You did that all by yourself." She froze, stopped fighting, and turned her face toward me, not with hatred this time, but with something worse. Panic. "Mom, please," she whispered, like a scared little girl. "Don't let them take me. Don't let it end like this." For a second, I saw the child who once held my hand after nightmares. For a second, it hurt, but only for a second, because some things aren't wounds anymore. They're scars, and scars don't reopen easily. I took a deep breath. "I gave you every chance in the world." She cried, not tears of regret, but tears of someone losing power. "Mom, please." And I answered, "Now it's my turn. And I choose the truth." The officers dragged her down the hall as she screamed, "I'll be back. You'll all regret this." Then the door closed, and silence returned. But a different silence this time. Not the silence of pain, the silence of release. Abigail breathed deeply and said, "I've waited my whole life to call you mother." I felt my chest opened like a rusted door finally breaking free. I held her face in my wrinkled hands and whispered through tears, "And I've waited a whole lifetime to find you." Emma rested her head on my shoulder, crying softly. Daniel placed the documents on the bedside table. "Now, Eleanor, everything is ready for court. You won't be fighting alone." I looked at the 3 of them, my granddaughter, the daughter I finally found, and the man who brought the truth back to me. And I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Strength, hope, right. "I will fight," I said, steady, "not for revenge, for justice." Abigail squeezed my hand. "And I'll fight with you," Emma added. "All 3 of us will." And then, with a voice rising from somewhere inside me, somewhere reborn, I said, "No more silence." From the hallway, we heard footsteps approaching, firm, purposeful. The nurse walked in slowly, holding a tablet streaming a live broadcast. "Mrs. Eleanor, it's about you. The press is outside." I looked at the screen, and I saw my face plastered across every headline. The banned grandmother who exposed the city's biggest family scandal. The woman who confronted her own daughter at the altar. And for the first time, I didn't feel shame. I felt pride. In the days after the confrontation at the hospital, the world seemed to flip upside down. What happened at the wedding didn't stay in the church. It didn't stay in the city. It didn't stay among us. It spread like wildfire across dry grass. The videos of the chaos went viral within hours, millions of views, headlines everywhere, heated comments, people taking sides. Even morning talk shows discussed it. The grandmother expelled from the wedding who exposed corruption and betrayal. The perfect family that collapsed on live video. The shocking downfall of Julia Harris. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't invisible. I wasn't just useful. I wasn't disposable. I was heard. On the day of the hearing, the courtroom was packed. Journalists, cameras, reporters trying to capture every expression. As soon as I entered, supported by Abigail's arm, I heard whispers. There she is, the grandmother from the scandal, the woman who stood up to her own children. I walked slowly, with dignity. The lights didn't hurt anymore. The stares didn't shrink me anymore. I didn't shrink. I rose. In the courtroom, on one side, me, Emma, Abigail, and Daniel. On the other, Mark, trying to hold himself together, pushing out rehearsed lines with a fake air of innocence, and Julia, in handcuffs, eyes hollow, makeup smeared, face devastated. She tried to look at me, but she was the one who looked away first. The judge entered. Everyone rose. The hearing began. Daniel presented the documents, the original deed to the factory with my name listed as owner, forged authorizations with my signature faked, millions siphoned through illegal transfers, the court petition illegally buried, messages and recordings proving Julia's blackmail and threats, the secret contract between Liam and Mark using Emma as financial collateral, bank statements showing hush money paid to keep Abigail away. With each document presented, another piece of the false image they had built crashed to the floor. Silence filled the room. The kind of silence that happens when an entire world witnesses the fall of the powerful. When it was my turn to speak, my hands trembled a little, but my voice came out steady. I stood, rested my palms on the wooden rail in front of me, and said, "My name is Eleanor Harris. I am a mother. I am a grandmother. I am a survivor. And for more than 20 years, I lived believing a lie." I paused, looked straight at Julia. She tried to hold my gaze, but lowered her eyes first. I was taught to stay quiet, to believe love demanded endless sacrifice, that a mother should give everything, even when she receives nothing in return. But today I understand that silence is not love. Silence is a grave. The room breathed with me. I was abandoned by my children, humiliated. They stole my story, my name, my future, my granddaughter. But today I am here to say, enough. I lifted my head. I am not here for money. I am not here for revenge. Then I delivered the final blow. I am here for dignity. A murmur rippled through the room. I continued, because love is not obedience. Love is not control. Love is not blackmail. And inheritance. Inheritance is not a right. Total silence. Inheritance is a consequence of character, of respect, of truth. I inhaled deeply, looking at Emma and Abigail. And so, I leave everything I have to those who stood beside me when everyone else turned their backs. Emma wept. Abigail placed her hand over mine. And I finished. I did not lose a family at that altar. I discovered who my family truly was. The judge turned to Julia. Given the evidence, the testimony, and the severity of the crimes, Julia Harris will be formally charged with document forgery, financial fraud, illegal appropriation of assets, and attempted assault. Julia screamed beyond control. "No, you can't. You're taking everything from me again." But nobody listened to her anymore. The judge handed me a document. "Mrs. Eleanor, the property and stolen funds are hereby returned to you." I didn't cry, I breathed. For the first time in decades, I breathed without weight on my back. When Julia walked past me in handcuffs, she stopped for a moment. Her eyes full of hatred and pain met mine, and she whispered, voice raw, "You won." I answered softly calm, without anger, "No, I survived." She was taken out of the courtroom amid the shouting press, and I stayed there upright, steady, whole. When we stepped outside, dozens of people applauded me. Cameras, microphones, flashes, and this time, none of it hurt me. It was respect, it was recognition, it was truth. A reporter pushed a microphone toward me and asked, "Mrs. Eleanor, what message do you leave for other women who've suffered injustice like you?" I answered without hesitation, "Don't wait until you're dying to live. Don't wait to fall to stand back up, and never let anyone tell you who you are. Blood doesn't define family, respect does." Then Emma and Abigail wrapped their arms around me, and the whole world stopped to watch, and for the first time, I felt alive. Emma whispered in my ear, "Grandma, can we go home now?" And I answered, "We can, but not to that house." to a new life, because the real victory wasn't the courtroom, it was the beginning. The house we returned to wasn't my old one. That house carried too many ghosts, too many heavy echoes, walls stained with silence. We went to a smaller place, simple but full of light, an old cottage by the lake, with a wooden porch and the smell of wildflowers. Nothing luxurious, nothing perfect, but for the first time in many years, my heart fit inside me without hurting. Days passed slowly, as if time had finally learned to move at the right pace. Every morning, I woke to the sound of the kettle whistling in the kitchen, and the soft laughter of Emma and Abigail talking as they made coffee. Sometimes, I just watched from the doorway, that scene that felt like a miracle. Two young women, so different, yet united by what remained, and by what we were rebuilding together. The pain didn't disappear, but it stopped bleeding. I learned that some wounds never fully close, but they stop bleeding when we stop hiding them. One late afternoon, sitting on the porch with Abigail, she handed me an old, carefully folded envelope. "I found this among the documents. I think it's for you," she said. I recognized the handwriting before I even touched it. Henry's hands. My heart tightened not with pain, but with a soft, aching longing. I opened it slowly. The letter said, "My Ellie, if you're reading this, it's because it's too late for me to say with my voice what my heart shouted my entire life. I made mistakes, terrible ones, but I never stopped loving you. Not for a single day. You were the best part of my life, the light of my soul. Abigail is my daughter. I should have told you from the very beginning, but I was afraid of losing you, afraid of ruining everything we built, and that fear made me a coward. I know this truth will hurt you, but I'd rather hurt you with honesty than protect you with lies. Take care of her, Ellie. She has no one. She needs you. And deep down, I know you need her too. If there is a heaven, I'll wait for you there. But I want to see you arrive, light, free, without chains around your heart. Thank you for being my home. Forever yours, Henry." The words washed through me like warm wind after a long storm. I closed my eyes and let the tears fall, not of pain, but of healing. Abigail rested her head on my shoulder, and I whispered, "He was right. You are my daughter, truly." She cried, a lifetime of tears finally released. One morning, Emma sat beside me, holding my hand. "Grandma, I thought the most important day of my life would be my wedding day, but I was wrong. The most important day of my life was the day I saw the truth, and the day you forgave me." I kissed her head. "Forgiveness isn't erasing what happened. Forgiveness is choosing to keep walking." She smiled with tears in her eyes. "I'm going to make you proud, Grandma." "You already have," I replied. A month later we walked to the lake near the house. The sun was low, painting the water in shades of gold and rose. Abigail brought 3 white flowers. Each of us tossed one into the water, one for each life that had been broken, and was now being rebuilt. We stood there in silence, and for the first time in many, many years, I felt peace. Not the peace that comes from a life without pain, but the peace that comes from a life with meaning. A peace born from finally stopping asking for permission to exist. When we returned home, I sat in front of the camera Emma had placed on the table, to record my message for the women who had written tearful letters saying, "Thank you for being our voice." I took a deep breath and said, "My name is Eleanor Harris. I'm 72 years old, and I was reborn when everyone thought I was finished. If someone made you believe you're worth nothing, know this: you are not disposable. You are not a burden. You are not shame. Family isn't who shares your blood. Family is who holds your hand when the world collapses. Inheritance isn't money. Inheritance is dignity. And dignity is not something you beg for. It's something you claim." A small smile, but whole. "It's not too late. Not for any of us." And looking directly into the camera, I finished. "Don't wait for your life to end to start living it. Begin again, even if it hurts, because you deserve it." Abigail wrapped her arms around me from behind, resting them on my shoulders, and I heard the wind moving through the trees, light, free, new, and I thought, the silence is over. Now life begins. And that's how I finished telling my story. Tell me in the comments, what would your reaction have been? I want to thank this channel, Buried by Family, for allowing me to share this part of my life with you. This channel needs your support to keep bringing more stories like this one. So click the subscribe button. That way, other women will also be able to share their truths here. On the screen, there's another video you might like.